Good morning. My name is Steve Reed, and welcome to Mental Health Monday, the place where we take bite-sized pieces of emotional, mental, and spiritual health and try to grow in our awareness, because awareness gives room for movement, and movement can lead to freedom. And it is for freedom that Christ set us free. So again, if you want to, if you're dialing in not live, feel free to scroll to about minute 2, because I'm just going to talk about a couple other things before we jump into our main topic this morning. Actually, next week, my wife and I will be out of town all week, and so we may not have Mental Health Monday, or if I can figure out how to record alive and then have somebody play it live. We may try to do that, but not sure exactly how to do that. I have done a little bit of research. We'll see if that's possible. If not, we'll see you back in 2 weeks. And if you have not tuned into our Tuesday offering on Theology Tuesday with Pastor John Heaver, you're missing out, so feel free to check in on that. It's also at 9 a.m. on Tuesday mornings. So that's going to be great. There is a quick aside I had that somebody asked me this week if it's helpful to journal through different media, like can you record yourself instead of writing it down? And I didn't actually know any research at the time, but I've done some additional research since then, and there actually is indication that if you're wanting to video record or audio record yourself, that's fine. It seems to have some really good impact. So today we're talking about Mental Health Monday, part 11, I think, don't journal, or don't journal if, and we're going to talk about 5 buts with journaling. So we know that writing helps us deal with things we can't control. Remember that context of there are things that we can't control, things that we can control, and there's the one who's in control of all things. And in those things that we can't control, journaling and expressive writing is really, really helpful. The death of a loved one, other traumas, difficulties that we're facing relationally, dealing with a pandemic, loss of a job, all kinds of things that are in that set of things that we can't control. It helps us sort out complex feelings and memories, and is really, really profitable. But if we're just processing things that are in control, writing can often be counterproductive. And so that's just helpful to kind of recognize. If I can do something to change an unpleasant situation, James Pennebaker says, we're much better off changing it than merely writing about it. And so, you know, if I'm going to do the practice from last week of 4 days in a row, writing for 20 minutes, and then doing something kind for myself for 10 minutes afterwards, and what I'm going into is my roommate who keeps on leaving all his dishes in the sink, then that's just crazy, right? And it would actually be better if I figured out a way to bring that up to my roommate and began to talk about it. So another thing, so writing is about problems, stress at work, relationships. It can be transforming, empowering, healing. But if we don't ever write about our emotions in there, or why we feel like we do, it's like we've lost track of why we're journaling in the first place. And it actually won't improve my health, it won't improve my cognition, it won't actually help me do any meaningful problem solving. So that's the second one. The third one, you know, writing forces us to ask how and why we feel the way we do. It helps us organize and structure and order, make meaning of the experiences. It's really helpful as a self-reflective exercise. It draws out our deepest emotions if we let it, and our thoughts, and then we can journal through those. But if I'm just complaining, it's not healing. It can actually be harmful. Blind venting actually makes us feel angrier. It's no longer used as any kind of a therapy tool. It's just worthless. So if all I'm doing is venting, I'm not helping myself. And so I want to be careful about that. So that's the third but. A fourth one is sometimes when we're writing, it does help us organize and name our emotions, but sometimes we come across one of those things that is a trauma trigger or a trauma pocket. And I've been writing and I've been a little bit disruptive, and then suddenly it hits something, a memory or a thought that hits me, or an emotion, a set of emotions, and suddenly instead of feeling about a 3, I'm suddenly feeling about a 7 or an 8 or a 9 out of a 10-point disruption scale. And it's not that, oh, as soon as that happens I should stop. It depends on what I'm able to. So if I can continue on in that, fine, that can actually be helpful for me. And yet, if it's getting in that disruptive place and I'm thinking I need to back away from this, do these 5 things real quick and see if it's helpful. Number 1, even write down, especially if it's true, it's over, I'm safe now, affirming my own safety. Number 2, asking myself, asking my heart, when have I ever felt this way before? Is there a time and a place in my heart's story when I have felt the things that I'm feeling now? And just kind of write that down if it seems like it's accurate. And then once I've gotten that, it's helpful to, especially if I'm getting to that place of feeling overwhelmed, just move away from that memory. You don't have to keep on going just because it's there. You can consider writing about it in the third person. So it's almost like you're watching it happen and telling a story about that. And so feel free to consider those things. And the 5th one would be, if I've gone through all of those pieces and this memory keeps on coming up or it gets triggered often in my days, then it might be a good opportunity to get some help. Talk to a good counselor. There may be some trauma work that would be appropriate to do. And so just kind of notice that's just because I'm journaling about it doesn't mean it's going to solve everything. Although it will give me good insight and help me move forward, there may be some additional work that I need to do. Okay, so those are 4 things. The 5th one, as we've seen, writing about feeling about what's happening to me is so helpful in self-reflection. Okay, so it helps me ask, who am I? It helps me ask, why do I behave the way that I behave? It helps me notice how do I feel that way, and at times why do I feel that way? And as I take a look at all of those things, it may be that it invites me to consider adjusting something, changing something, moving in a more healthy, more positive direction. And that can be really freeing for me. I've always done it this way, but just because I've always done it this way, it might be because I'm leaning into something that is more negative than is real. And so I can actually adjust how I deal with that and confront something or step into it or step away from something that's not been helpful. And so I might be able to adjust. So in that place of self-reflection, it's so helpful. But, and this is the 5th one, by definition, during journaling, we are self-reflecting. I'm looking at myself, and it's to the exclusion of others. And if that becomes sort of my standard position, I can't be empathic towards others. I can't be a good friend. I can't be a meaningful contributor in relationship. Self-reflection, it ends up with health, healing, and benefiting relationships. Self-absorption is maladaptive, isolating, and it moves towards a narcissistic perspective which destroys relationship. And so these 5 things are things to be cautious about. It doesn't mean, oh my gosh, I need to screen every word that's coming out of my mouth. It's just like, notice what's going on inside of me. And as I'm noticing what's going on inside of me, go ahead and notice if it seems like it's hitting one of these 5 butts. One refinement that we might want to make even to the kind of journaling that we talked about last week. Remember, last week we said if we journal for 4 days in a row for 20 minutes, then there is a significant impact in our emotional health, and even our physical health, our immune system is bolstered. And yet, because of these buts, there is a couple refinements that might be helpful. And one of them is just recognizing, Scripture invites us to recognize, hey, it's not all about us. It's not all about us. Philippians 2:4 says, do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also the interests of others. And one refinement we might think about doing is, okay, so journal for 4 days in a row about something that's been disruptive. And remember, last week we talked about, before I start that 20 minutes, I'm going to decide on 10 minutes of good, healthy self-care, something that's going to be good for my heart and head and body as I'm moving out of that journaling time. And I would just invite 2 minutes afterwards of asking the question, what can I do to bless somebody else? What can I do to be kind to somebody else? And it might even be in a prayer form. Lord, what would you invite me into that can help me bring me and my talents and my abilities, my stewardship, and be able to bless somebody else? And so it's helpful to kind of recognize, just because I'm journaling and going into all of these things, that is helpful for me, that does not need to become something of self-absorption. I can purposely minister to my own heart, be kind to myself in self-care, and then I can actually purposely choose to ask God for a takeaway that is a kindness towards somebody else. In one way, Mental Health Monday is an offering I can make that is a kindness towards myself, but also towards others. And now my sister, I was on a Zoom call with her and my brother yesterday, and she has mentioned that she has found out that my parents in COVID and isolation are missing some of the things that they would have liked to be able to do, even going out occasionally. And my sister said, well, I can order sushi for you and have it delivered. And my mom was amazed by that. And so she did that. And my mom is in New Mexico, my sister is in Boston, and yet that was very possible through the miracle of technology. And so just thinking about, maybe there's a little thing I can do to bless somebody else, and that helps me move into that space where I'm not merely looking about my own interests, but also the interests of others, and that's a blessing. And so I hope today is a positive day for you, that there is an opportunity to reflect on things that are helpful and encouraging and even challenging, and doing so in a healthy way, and inviting ourselves into those places where we can be a blessing, seek to be a blessing to others. That's a blessing to ourselves as well. So it's great being with you. I look forward to catching you next time. Thanks so much.